Are you a person who wants to be sexy at 60, sensational at 70, awesome at 80, never give up at 90, happy, healthy, and 100 plus? Does everybody fit into that category somewhere? Now, you may not be at our age yet fabulous at 50, sexy at 60, but the interesting thing right now in the world is that is a real major risk category. If you're over the age of 50 and you're not healthy, fit, and strong, you could be having some serious challenges. So the question for tonight is, if you fit into any of those boxes, are you a parent, a teacher, a coach, a parent, an elite athlete, somebody who has to lead people? My next question is this. If you have an eating and exercise plan, so out of all of us here tonight, do we eat food? Do we exercise? Great. So if we eat food and if we exercise, there should be some things that we can demand from our eating and exercise plan. So the first one is, if you eat and if you exercise, should you be able to demand from that plan that you have a stack of energy all day long? So would it be fair to say, if I'm eating food and if I'm exercising, I should have a stack of energy all day? Would that be a fair question? And should I be able to demand that of my eating and exercise plan? The next question is, should I have a stack of energy throughout the day? So regardless of what's going on in my day, should I be able to jump out of bed with energy and enthusiasm? Or am I dragging myself out of bed? And should I be able to maintain that energy throughout the day? So not have to have a snooze at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or have a Red Bull or a coffee or both. So should I be able to form at my top level? Should I have a stack of energy? Then imagine yourself naked or imagine somebody else is looking at you naked. Should you be able to demand of your eating and exercise plan that you look really good, both in and out of your clothes? And I think it's a really important question, because a lot of people, up until this time in history, if you went to a personal trainer or if you went to the gym, it was usually about, I want to look good. So the number one thing that people Google, the number one thing that people say when they go to a trainer or to a gym or to a fine studio like Fit Bodies, Fit Minds, would say, I want to look good, I want to lose weight. So should we be able to demand of our eating and exercise plan that we look naked and we look good in our clothes? Awesome. Next question. If I'm eating and if I'm exercising, if I want a certain result, and we're all going to fit into a different category, but it might be a sporting goal. It might be that you want to look good in a certain outfit for getting married or a social event or a family reunion. It might be that you want to climb a mountain, you want to win a grand final, you want to do an Ironman, you want to run a marathon, you've got a sporting event, some kind of something happening in your life, and you want to get a result from your eating and exercise plan. So if I said to you, what is your number one health and fitness goal right now? If it wasn't to lose weight or to get into great shape, it might be, I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and I want to go to base camp Mount Everest, or I want to be able to party in Las Vegas when it's open again for 6 nights straight and not have to sleep. We've all got different goals. So should we be able to demand from our eating and exercise plan that number 1, peak performance, number 2, stack of energy, number 3, I look bloody great, and number 4, I'm getting the results that I want from my eating and exercise plan? Would that be a yes across the board? All right. So if I've got myself in that position, I'm going to ask everybody this question. If you are already performing at your peak every single day, if you are already maintaining a stack of energy all day long, if you are already looking amazing naked, as Matthew joins us right at that point, amazing naked, and if you are getting the results that you want from your eating and exercise plan, keep doing what you're doing. We live in a world right now where we are being bombarded constantly with eat this, don't eat that, eat at this time, don't eat till then, don't eat till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, don't eat after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, can't have this, mustn't have, don't have, shouldn't have, and bang, 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 bang. And who do you believe? Well, the first thing to ask is those 4 questions. If I have peak performance, if I'm getting all the energy I need and I'm maintaining it throughout my day, if I look good naked and in my clothes, and if I'm getting the results that I want from my eating and exercise plan, why the hell would I change anything? Just say I wouldn't, Rowie. And doesn't matter what silly person comes along and says you should and you can't and you mustn't, you wouldn't believe them, because you'd say, go away, I'm doing great. Have you ever experienced that, where you've been eating something and someone comes along and goes, you shouldn't be eating that, it's bad for you? Well, go away. I'm doing great. So if you're doing really well, congratulations. If you can't answer yes to those 4 questions, then do we need to do something about it? So if you're not going to win your grand final, or if you're not going to win the bikini competition, or if you're not going to be able to climb a mountain, if you don't have a stack of energy, if you're not performing at your top level, if you don't like what you see naked, then do you need to change something? So now comes literally the $1 trillion question. And I haven't heard that number. It's been thrown around a lot lately. Trillions and trillions of dollars. Well, we're going to be spending in our world right now trillions and trillions of dollars on sick care. It's not health care, it's sick care. Because as humans, we've gotten really sick. So what are we going to do as healthy, fit, strong humans to make sure that we are setting the example? I'm going to ask the question again that I did at the beginning. If you are a parent, if you are a teacher, if you are a coach, if you're a boss, if you're a pastor, if you are a leader in any way, shape or form, do you have the responsibility to be in peak physical condition? Should you be able to say, yes, I perform at my top level, I have a stack of energy, I look great in my clothes, and I'm getting the results that I want from my eating and exercise plan? Should we be able to say yes if we're in a leadership role? Please say yes. We have a responsibility, and for the first time in history, and Maddie and Sheridan have known me for a long time, I have been preaching, teaching, begging, pleading for years, please get healthy and fit and strong. Because when you're fit and strong, you're of course more likely to be healthy. And if you're healthy, then you can fight germs, bugs and viruses. You're more likely and better to perform at everything that you do. So if you can say yes, congratulations. If you're saying no and you need to be in peak performance, what are you going to do about it? And here's what I'm sick of, and I'm going to give it to you straight down the line, because I'm living in a country now that's locked down. The whole country's tanked itself because of a virus. But interestingly, this particular virus and any big disease, and I'll be really controversial and politically incorrect, coronary heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, obesity, stroke, most cancers are killing far more people on a day-to-day basis than anything else will. And we, as fit, strong, healthy humans, we have the answer to all of those. If you're fit and you're strong, you are less likely to get sick. If you do get sick, you'll get better quicker, you'll recover quicker, and it's not going to come back again. So, again, if you are a parent, a teacher, a coach, a pastor, a leader, what are you going to do? And surely it's not some stupid, crazy diet plan that you saw on social media. Surely that's not the answer. So here's the question. What are you going to believe when it comes to eating high performance fuel for your high performance body? But I'm going to give you an even more controversial question. If I've got a beautiful car and it's a high performance car, I have to put high performance fuel in it. I wouldn't put cheap budget fuel or oil into a beautiful car. If I've got a crappy old beaten up car and the engine's broken, what's the point of putting high performance, expensive avgas fuel into that car if it's broken? And that's one of the interesting challenges that I have as an exercise professional, because people talk about food all the time. But what's the use of putting great food into a body if your body's not in peak condition? And is it possible that if you're fit and if you're really strong, that when you put high performance fuel in there, that it's going to work properly? So if you put vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals and antioxidants into your body, you've got to have a body that can then circulate those things effectively and make sure that they go to the right place at the right time. And that's the big challenge I've got with eat healthy food. Well, what's the use of eating healthy food if you don't look after your body? So which comes first? And there's that big controversial question. Which is more important, food or exercise? Oh, and I hear this every day. Well, food is 80% of your results and exercise is 20%, or 50% is from food and 50% is from exercise, or 10%, 90%. Hang on a minute. How about 100%? 100%. How about eat 100% high performance fuel for your brain and for your body, and exercise at peak performance at 100% all of the time? So if you're going to exercise at fit body, fit mind, don't put in half an effort, put in a full 100% effort. Imagine saying that I'm just going to put in my 20% effort today because 80% is my food. Well, one would look at you as if you had some kind of mental disorder. 100% effort into your exercise, and of course then you would need 100% high performance fuel. But before I say anything else about food, isn't it important that if you have a food that you love, and I'm going to ask this question across the board, do you have a food that you just love, like it's an orgasm for your mouth? Well, from this day forward, please put up your right hand and say, I will never, ever, 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 ever remove my favorite food from my healthy eating plan. Say it again. I will never, ever, 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 ever remove my favorite food from my healthy eating plan. Ah, yes. Because the challenge for that is if you love to drink something, thank you, sir. If you love to eat something and you don't have it, can't have it, mustn't have it, is it possible that you'll either go crazy insane because you want it so bad, or at some stage you'll have a bounce back effect? So if you normally have a couple of beers every night, or you normally have pizza once a week, or you normally have chocolate every day, if you say no, 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 is it possible that there's going to come a time when you say stuff it and you have just a ridiculous amount of? So the big thing about food, of course, is there such a thing as a good or a bad food? And I always use this example, and it was a student of mine at our Brisbane college at the Max International Colleges. And if you talk about food, if you say chocolate is a bad food and broccoli is a good food, most people would probably agree with you. Yes, chocolate's very bad. Have you heard that? You shouldn't eat chocolate, it's bad for you. But you should eat broccoli because it's really good for you. Well, I've got two things there. Number one is if you don't like chocolate, you don't eat it. If you love chocolate and you don't eat it, what happens to your mental health? You just go insane. And if somebody says you should eat broccoli and you don't like broccoli, why would you waste calories on a food that you don't even like? Like, why? And have you seen people eating healthy food with this look on their face, like, I'm eating healthy food and it's good for me? Just as a quick side note, the biggest killer in the world right now is stress. When your body is stressed, it fills up with cortisol. Now, cortisol is a good thing because it means that your body gets ready to fight or flight. So you get ready to sprint or punch. If you're not fit and if you're not strong, if you haven't been doing your fit body, fit mind workouts, your body will go into panic mode. It'll shut down if it's filled up with stress, and the cortisol doesn't disperse. So what happens now is you've got cortisol running around in your body, putting your body at a diseased state. You will be at diseased state, which means you'll pick up diseases. And is it possible that a lot of our food challenges cause us stress? Can't have, mustn't have, shouldn't have, don't have, and we get and feel guilty about the foods that we really want to have, so we get stressed about it. The reverse of that is I have to eat this food because it's really healthy for me, but I'm not enjoying it. So now I'm stressed about eating healthy food as well because it tastes like crap, but I have to eat it because it's good for me. So now that whole process of food becomes a distressed feeling. You put stress into your body, you put cortisol into your body, and if you're not sprinting and fighting, then you just feel crappy and guilty and you shut down. And then your body's at a state of disease, and then you get diseased. So can you hear with what I'm sharing with you that drinking beer and eating chocolate and eating your favorite food is really important? Put your right hand up again. I promise that I will never, ever, 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 ever take my favorite food out of my healthy eating plan. Woohoo! So the broccoli. One of my students, he eats 3 kilograms of broccoli. Now, if you eat 3 kilograms of chocolate, you'll probably feel sick. But can I promise you that when he ate 3 kilograms of broccoli, he not only felt sick, he passed very stinky wind for about 3 days. He had really bad stomach cramps and he felt like crap from eating broccoli. So is it possible that there are no good or bad foods, just the amount in which you eat them? So could it be possible that please take away from today, whether you're an athlete, a parent, a teacher, a coach, a mountain climber, or a football player, that the food that you eat has to be food that you thoroughly enjoy. You don't feel guilty eating it and you don't feel guilty not eating it. That would be a really important part of your high performance machine. Now, the next thing is when you get bombarded with information about eat, don't eat, can eat, mustn't have, don't have, shouldn't have. And I'll give you the variations. If you talk right now to cardiologists and endocrinologists, the hormonal doctors, at one end of the scale is be a vegan vegetarian. And not only a vegan vegetarian, but only eat green vegetables. There are some doctors that are suggesting that we should only eat green vegetables, nothing else. At the other end of the scale, there are doctors suggesting, endocrinologists and cardiologists suggesting that we should be full carnivores. So we don't eat anything else except meat. No vegetables, no fruit, no cereal, no grain, nothing else, just meat. So here's a doctor saying vegan, vegetarian. Here's a doctor saying carnivore, and they're both endocrinologists or cardiologists. So they're doctors of the human body. Which one do you believe? How about this? How much energy do you have? Are you performing at your top level? Do you love what you see naked? And are you getting the results that you want from your eating and exercise plan? And if the answer is yes, what do you say to the doctor? Go away. I'm doing great. If you're not going to say yes to those 4 things, you obviously need to make some changes. Would that be a fair statement? If I'm not performing at my peak, if I don't have a stack of energy, if I don't love what I see naked, if I'm not getting the results that I want, I have to make some changes. But here's the system for change. And this is whether you're an athlete or a mum or a pregnant person, whether you're sexy at 60, awesome at 80, or awesome at 8. Here's the solution to food. And I love it because in Australia, there are things called Smarties, and they're the yummiest little coloured lollies ever. And they're also the best solution for all eating plans. So get yourself a box of Smarties, and this will remind you, you need to sit the box of Smarties in your pantry and in your fridge. Eat them, buy one to eat, but also put the box in your cupboard, in your fridge, to remind you of this system for working out what's good for food. So it goes like this. SMARTIES, 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 Smarties principle. Now, this is for food and for exercise, but I'm just chatting about food. So S stands for something I can stick to for the rest of my life. What's the use of going on a diet, an eating plan, if you can't stick to it forever? Because here's what most people do. They start their diet on Monday, because you never start a diet on Sunday. You eat whatever you possibly can on Sunday. And then Monday, life is over. I'm on a diet. So then I'm on my diet. And let's say my diet says no chocolate. So no chocolate on Monday, no chocolate on Tuesday, no chocolate on Wednesday, no chocolate on Thursday. Friday night in front of the television, guess what? The whole block. I can't stick to something that says I can't have, mustn't have, don't have, shouldn't have. So here's what I have to do. I have to stick to my eating plan for the rest of my life. So if somebody throws an eating plan at you and you can't do that for the rest of your life, what should you tell them to do? How's it go, Sheridan? That's so perfect. If you can't do it forever, that means you're on a diet and has to come to an end, which is what die is all about, coming to an end. So ask yourself the question, whatever somebody throws at you, can I stick to this for the rest of my life? If the answer is no, give it a miss. M stands for moderation. Now, anything at the extreme, you have to go back to the question, can I stick to this for the rest of my life? So if somebody says you can only eat green vegetables or you can only eat meat for the rest of your life, is that first of all moderation? And is it moderation for you? Because what somebody else is doing might not work for you. And that's the whole key here. This is your eating plan. So can you stick to this for the rest of your life? And is this in moderation for you? Next one is achievable. Can I actually do this? And here's one of the challenges. If you don't do it, if you don't achieve it, and this is the big challenge with all diets, if you start a diet and you go off that diet, you end up feeling guilty. And if you feel guilty, guess what happens? You get stressed. If you've got stress in your body, you don't get rid of it. Now you're at disease state and you end up being diseased. If you can achieve it, then you feel good about yourself. Then your brain fills up with dopamine. Your brain fills up with happy chemicals and you really like who you are because you did it. Most diets are set up for you to fail. Most diets you can't stick to for the rest of your life. They're not in moderation for you. So you end up failing and then you feel like crap and then you go into a downward spiral. So if it's not achievable for you, don't even start it. It's not worth the effort because you'll end up feeling really terrible about it. So the next one is realistic. And the questions here are, is this realistic for my lifestyle, for the way I live my life? And I always ask these questions. When do you like to eat food? Why do you eat food? What are the best times of the day for you? Where do you like to eat? And a lot of diets will say you can't have, for example, let's say you can't eat after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And there's a lot of diets that say that. What if food is your thing? What if that at 6 o'clock at night, you like to sit down with your family in a beautiful surrounding with a glass of wine and a beautiful meal, and it's part of your life experience. If somebody says to you, you can't eat it after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, well, now your whole life is completely changed. And that means you can't stick to it for the rest of your life. Now, at the moment, there's a big thing with intermittent fasting. So you can't eat breakfast and you don't eat until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is exactly the opposite. So what if breakfast is your favorite meal of the day? What if you love bacon and eggs? And what if you're starving to death and this stupid diet says, no, you can't eat until 12 o'clock because you have to not eat for 12 hours. So you feel really crappy for 6 hours because you can't eat anything. Then when you go and eat, you go, oh, I'm so hungry, and you eat too much. So the really important thing is it's got to be realistic for your time frame. It's got to be realistic for you. It's got to be realistic for your life. Please make that happen. Next one is really cool. Time efficient. When do you like to eat food? How long does it take to cut and measure and weigh your food? When are the best times of the day for you to eat food? It has to fit in with your time frame. So Smarties. Can I stick to it for the rest of my life? Is it in moderation? Is it achievable? Is it realistic? Is it time efficient for me? Some people love to cut up food and make food a beautiful experience, and other people have got to do it in a hurry. And if your eating plan says that you have to do something that you can't do because it won't fit into your lifestyle because you don't have time, then of course you're not going to stick to it for the rest of your life. Next one is interesting and enjoyable. I'll put the two of them together. Why would you waste calories on food that you don't like? Why would you waste calories on food that doesn't taste good? So if it's not interesting to you and it's not enjoyable for you, don't eat it. Don't go there. So the last one, however, is a very controversial one because we could say science. We could say what you eat should be based on a scientific eating plan. But as I shared before, vegan, vegetarian, green vegetables only, total carnivore diet, and you'll probably fit somewhere in between. How do you know what to eat based on science? So I use a different statement for science, and how about common sense? If you look at something and say, I really think that doesn't work for me, then don't do it. So if you put that whole thing together, it comes down to what do you like to eat? What don't you like to eat? What is the best time of the day for you to eat food? What are the reasons that you eat food? And if you want to be a high performance, peak performing machine, if you want to be a fat burning machine, if you want to pump happy drugs into your brain, then your food needs to be something that is just a normal part of your life. So and I don't know what I can do for adults, because I think once you've learned something, it's hard to unlearn it. So if you really think that carbohydrate's going to make you fat, or if you eat that it's going to be bad for you, or you shouldn't eat chocolate because it's a bad food, I'm not sure that I can change that headspace for adults. But if you are a parent, a teacher, or a coach, I'm begging you from my heart to yours, I don't want our kids to grow up in a world where it's normal to go on a diet. Unfortunately, diets are the solution to being fat. And I don't think that being fat is something that we should want for our children. How about we don't get fat in the first place? How about we start our kids off healthy, fit and strong? And how about we stick to this healthy eating plan? And when I say healthy, healthy for your brain and healthy for your body. So how about if our kids are constantly hearing good food, bad food, can't have, mustn't have, shouldn't have, it's bad for me, I have to go on a diet, I have to get my body fat tested, I have to weigh myself, I hate being fat. If our kids keep hearing that over and over in their headspace, is it possible that they get an unhealthy relationship with their food, they get an unhealthy relationship with their exercise? And if you are a parent, a teacher, or a coach, you'll know even better than I do how many kids are already screwed up when it comes to their food. And I don't want that for our kids. I want our kids to grow up in a world where it's really normal to be exercising every day, eating the foods that you love, not eating too much food. And here's my solution to all of it. How about eat when you're hungry, stop eating when you're full, eat all the foods that you love to eat, don't eat the foods that you don't like to eat. And if you're not performing at your top level, then you need to change some things, but not because somebody else tells you that you have to change them, not because Rowie said you have to eat this. And if you ask me, Rowie, what should I eat? I go, how the bloody hell should I know? How about this? Eat what you love to eat, don't eat what you don't like to eat. If you don't like the shape of your body, how about eat a little bit less and move a little bit more? And if you really want to get into great shape, how about eat the foods that you love and exercise at high intensity? Because when you're a fit human being, you burn fat, burn calories, burn sugar really fast. Your body becomes a fat burning machine, a happy drug pumping machine. You're a virus fighting machine, and everything about your life is awesome when you're fit and strong. So how about we all get fit and strong? How does that sound? Woohoo! This is such a special experience for me, and I'm going to now, that's my thing about food, I'm now going to introduce you to my amazing husband, who is, yes, an exercise scientist. He's, yes, a published research scientist. Yes, he's currently 19 times world taekwondo champion, and I share that because we've been waiting for the 20th, and obviously every championship this year has been cancelled. So he's going to be 19 times world champion, we think, for this year. My ultimate thing I want to share with you, however, is he takes the human body and makes it something that's really easy to understand. And until I met KMan, I thought that exercise was really complicated and anatomy and physiology was really complicated, and it really isn't. It's really easy. So here he is, the KMan. Woo!
Hey going everybody, hope you're having a great time, getting great information. Thank you, Rowie, for sharing how to fuel your engine, your body for life. And I think Warren Buffett put it beautifully. He's the great business investor. He said once, if you could choose one car and one car only, and that car had to serve you for the rest of your life, and you couldn't get another car, but it had to last your entire life, two questions would be, number one, what type of car would you choose, and how would you treat it and look after it? And I think that's a great question, because ultimately our body is our car, and we only have one, and it's not like we can trade it in. I'm now in my mid-50s, and I've had many cars through my journey. In my younger years, I blew out a lot of my cars because I neglected them and I drove them poorly and I didn't service them. My first car was a Datsun 180B car. It was a good car by the end. It was a rust bucket, and it ended up, I had to pay someone to come and get it to take it to the heat before I got my next car. But over time, I realized that if I wanted my cars to last, I had to look after them. And now I have nice cars and high performance cars, so I respect them and look after them, as ideally you would do the same for your body. So if you had to make that decision, what type of car would you pick, and what would be some of the factors that you would take into account before you chose that car? And I'm sure, you know, for the average person that you would consider, okay, what's the durability of this car? What is going to be the lifespan? Because I don't want this car to, you know, to be high performance, but it doesn't last very long, where it falls apart, or it breaks down regularly, or it blows up, or it costs a lot of money to service. So you'd pick a car that has endurance. You'd also pick a car that would be safe, because you don't want to crash. You don't want to, you know, hurt yourself or your family. So safety would be an important consideration. And then you'd also, the last thing you'd probably consider would be performance. So it's no use having performance, high level performance, if you're always crashing. And it's no use having high level performance if you're always breaking down. So yes, we want a high performance car or vehicle or body, but we don't want to compromise safety and endurance to get that performance. So I guess performance is, yes, that's an important component, but without the first two, it doesn't make any difference anyway. It's no use having a high performance body if it's breaking down and always injured, and it's not going to last. And I think what people do in the fitness profession, they're always focusing on performance, high performance training and high performance cardio and high performance strength training. But what they don't take into account is that, yes, performance is important, but it's no use having performance if in the exercise or doing that performance, you're actually causing damage to the car, and you're going to reduce the lifespan of the car because you're not going to be performing at all. And when you got that car and you put it in for a service, you put it into the mechanics to get a service and a tune-up, normally when you put it in, how quickly do you want it to have back? You don't put it in and I say, look, we'll give it back to you in 5 days. You say, no, I'd love to put it in now and get it in, get it back this afternoon. So you'd also want your car to be easy to be serviced. And when you do get it serviced, you want it to be serviced in a very time efficient and an effective way. And the reason why I'm using this story is because it correlates to your body and how you train. A lot of the time we compromise safety for performance, or we compromise longevity for performance. And when we do that performance, or we get it serviced to get that performance, we probably do too much servicing of it that actually takes it off the road for too long a period of time. Now, your body is your car, and inside your body you have mechanics. You have your own mechanics, and ultimately you are the head mechanic. And you may have an assistant head mechanic who might be your personal trainer, who assists you in activating all the internal mechanics. And the internal mechanics are your hormones, they are your biochemical properties that are stimulated with training, that stimulate your body to get fitter, to get stronger, to fight off disease, to build bone mineral density, to get more powerful, to have more stability. But these mechanics can be very lazy. If you don't stimulate them, then they'll sit on the couch, eat potato chips and watch Netflix. So if you yourself sit on the couch, eat potato chips and watch Netflix and don't do any training, well, your internal mechanics would do exactly that. And then ultimately your internal engine of your body or your car will soon rust away, fall apart, get cobwebbed up, and it will reduce its performance, so much so that it end up being on the trash heap. So how do you get your internal mechanics off the couch? Well, you have to get off the couch, because they will match and mirror internally exactly what you stimulate from the outside. So if you do some training and you do the right type of training, then you activate your body, you get it out of its homeostatic state, which is where it's rest, and you get it into that place of stress, a good stress that forces the body to change. And it changes through that stress that activates the nervous system and the muscular system, that releases the hormones and the biochemicals in the body, and all of that starts to change your physiology to transition and transform your car or your body into a better, more effective, efficient working machine. So training is basically, when you go to training, that is your stimulus. That is putting your car in for a service to get it tuned up. So when you go to the gym, or you train at home, or you train online, think of that as servicing. That is actually, it's not even just maintaining, it's actually turning your body or your car into a better working machine. But in that process, you want to make sure that you're working on the engine and you're building the engine, but you're not compromising the wheels or the axle. It's no use if I put my car in for a service and comes back and they say, hey, your car, the engine is working fantastic, it's strong, it's more powerful, it has more horsepower, and I get in and I drive off and all the wheels start falling off. Then what's the point of having a powerful engine if I haven't got the wheels to take me to where I want to be? And if you look at the correlation, the engine would be, say, your muscles. The muscles of your body is your engine, and the wheels are your joints. So when you do train, it's important that, yes, you train the muscles and stimulate the muscles, but you don't compromise the joints. It's no use fixing one part of the car if other parts are falling apart. And a lot of the time when you look at a lot of training programs or training exercises, yes, they're working one part of the car, but they can also be detrimental and contradictory to other parts of the car. If you would have heard the saying, all exercise is better than no exercise. And I guess that is partly true, because no exercise, if you do no exercise over time, your body will rust away. If you do too much exercise or the wrong exercise, your body will wear away. And I have this nice saying, it's better to wear out than rust out. Now, rusting out means where your body is inactive, and your body starts to get imbalanced from being overweight, or you get too much insulin or stress from catecholamines or your cortisol, whatever it might be, and you start to suffer from metabolic diseases such as coronary heart disease and diabetes. On the other hand, if you don't train properly, you train too much or train with poor technique or poor exercises, then you're going to have other challenges with the car where you're going to start to wear out the axle, wear out the tread, your wheel line will be off, and you're going to have all these other challenges. In the body, that means your body will be suffering things, will eventually start suffering things such as arthritis, osteoarthritis, cystitis, capsulitis, bursitis, or the itises, because that's the inflammation from many times too much or too long or too much repetition. So it's really important that you take ownership and take responsibility for your own body, because ultimately it's your car. You're the one who has to live in it 24/7, and it's your vehicle that's going to take you through life. And yes, you want to have a bit of faith and trust in maybe a personal trainer or coach that's going to advise you. But my suggestion is don't have blind trust or blind faith, because sometimes that individual coach might be a Formula One, or she might be a Formula One racer, and they love racing Formula One cars. Therefore, they think everyone should drive their car like a Formula One race car. And if you get your car and drive it like a Formula One race car, yes, it will go fast for a while, but eventually you end up in the ditch, or will burn out, will blow up, things will start falling off. Because the coach themselves, they love fast driving, but you may not want that level of performance. You just want maybe a good lifestyle, good quality of life, a healthy life, play with the grandkids, outrun your grandkids, but you don't need to win Olympic gold medals. So ultimately, I'm going to cover some points, 5 points questions that are going to be helpful in you in determining whether, hey, this training or this exercise or this session is going to be complementary to my body and my car, and servicing it and making it better so it can serve my life, rather than getting a short-term high level of performance that may end up breaking the car down. Therefore, no longer can it serve my life. So when you look at a exercise, and now with social media and the internet and Google and YouTube, everyone's an expert. And be very careful when you search through those engines looking for solutions, unless you're already very knowledgeable in the fundamentals of anatomy and physiology and biomechanics and physics and biochemistry. Because if you don't have the fundamentals of that, you've got nothing to make a decision on. So other people can get a little bit of truth and combine it with a lot of bullshit, and it can actually sound believable. So going down that path to find the truth is almost like going through the garbage to find a healthy apple. You're going to go through a lot of rubbish to get that apple, but even when you get the apple, you can't many times differentiate whether that's healthy or not. So I'm going to give you some 5 questions that I want you to, I love my car. I'm not a mechanic, but I know enough about my real car, not my body car, that I know when a mechanic is leading me down the garden path or suggesting something which, hey, that doesn't really make sense to me. And common sense, as you know, is not very common, and many times it leads to nonsense. And I don't want you to go down that path. Now, certainly you're with a great facility now, which bases all their exercise programs and on safety and performance, but there's a good balance between the two, and performance relative to your goals. And that's the ultimate. So these are the 5 things to take into account. Number 1 is that before you do an exercise or you do any form of program, ask yourself this ultimate question, and sometimes we tend to forget it, is what am I training for? What is my goal? What do I want out of this exercise? Is it to lose fat? Is it to build muscle? Is it to increase power? Is it to be a Formula One race car? Or is it just to be a family car to get my family around the suburbs in a safe vehicle? So everyone has different goals. So when you look at an exercise or a program, you say, okay, does that make sense? Does that map into what I want? If I just want to have general strength, quality of life, a good range of movement, and I see people doing all these exercises that look pretty radical and pretty crazy, you probably say, well, maybe that's not really going to serve my goal. Yes, it may serve what they want to do, but one doesn't fit all. And many times people can become fashion trainers or trendy trainers. They come up with a new concept and they give everyone that concept. And obviously everyone's into what now is called functional training. And I'll talk more about that. But yeah, I've got to ask yourself, yeah, that's functional training, but does that serve my goal? What is the ultimate outcome do I want? And does that exercise or that nutrition plan or that program, does it look like it's linked to what I want to do? And use your common sense to start with. Trust your inner gut, trust your heart, and go, well, does it make sense? And can I see that would lead me down to what I want to do, whether it be losing fat, rehabilitation, or you might be an elite athlete where you may want to get high level of performance and speed and power. So that's the number one, because many times we tend to forget the why of what we're training. We get so wrapped up in the process. And so many times people fall in love with the training so much, they forget the result. So they lose themselves in the training. They seem to get results, but they're not the right results. They're not the results relative to what they actually want. You know, you might be pushing really hard in your strength work and doing powerful leg presses and real heavy weights, but your main goal is to lose weight. But all your focus is on getting maximally turning into a superhero strong machine, because obviously everyone else is doing that. Or you get all crazy and doing deadlifts or Olympic lifts, but you think, well, actually, is that really linked into my goal? So that's the number one thing, to never lose sight of why I'm doing what I'm doing, and ask yourself with any exercise, why am I doing this and how does it work? Why am I doing this exercise and how does this actually work? And can it be explained in a very simple process that makes common sense? Because normally if it's complicated, as the great Einstein said, a genius would take something which is very complicated and make it very simple, where an egotist would take something very simple and make it very complicated. So if you're getting really complicated and you're getting really confused with the answer, then it's probably a way to disguise that it may not be right for you. So don't just believe the big words if you don't know what they actually mean, and the person can't explain the big words in simple terms, then maybe they don't really understand the simple terms. That's why they use the big words to disguise the fact that they don't understand the fundamentals. So that's number one. Number two is you look at the exercise, is it safe? Does it look safe? I mean, I use the look principle. When you first look at it, do you go, oh yeah, of course. That makes complete sense. Versus you look at the exercise and go, what are they doing? Wow, that's weird. My gosh, why are they hanging upside down? Why are they swinging around? Or why are they doing that? And if it has that little bit of a shock factor to start with, where it's like when you look outside and you see a car driving down the road and it's driving on the two wheels on one side and it's steering on two wheels, you'd go, wow, why are they doing that? Wow, that's a great party trick. That's a great car trick, but it doesn't make any sense. Or they're doing burnouts and smoke's burning out of the back of the car and they're doing donuts. And you go, wow, why are they doing that? It might be impressive in a car show, but it might be, well, that's pretty weird. Why do you drive a car that way? Why do you do that to your body? So the first thing is when you look at an exercise, does it make sense in terms of function or specific to what you want to achieve? You know, function is an interesting term, functional training. Well, I'm standing up at the moment, and in the upright position is where we generally function. You know, when we're walking, when we're running, when we're stepping, when we're climbing, when we're sprinting, when we're picking things up, when we're pushing the wheelbarrow, carrying my shopping, that's where I need most of my functional strength, is in the upright position. So if someone says we're going to do this is a great functional exercise, it's good for your functional muscles, and they say, I want you to lay down on the ground and do an exercise on a ball or do it on hanging off a rope and you're on the floor, then why would you train muscles that function in the upright position, and why would you train them on the laying down position? That in itself does not make any sense whatsoever. Because those muscles function, say, if I look at what we call the core muscles that people throw around very loosely, and if we even go back 8 years ago, there's no term called the core. I've been a trainer, an exercise professional for 37 years. I've gone through a degree and a master's degree. I've trained elite athletes and all of that wonderful stuff. And it's only been in the last 6, 8 years I've ever heard of the term core. because core is not actually a muscle. And people say it's a group of muscles, but it's not an anatomical group of muscles. It's not in the Grand Atlas of Anatomy, which I studied when I went through university. It's a trendy term. It's an industry term, and people throw around loosely. So if someone uses the word core, well, you could ask them this: what are the 7 muscles that make up the core? What are their origins and insertions? What is their actions and what are their functions? And you'd find you probably get a blank look, because people use the word core, but they don't really understand deep down what core really is. And ultimately, the core muscles, if I want to put it in a real broad way, they're the muscles that keep you in the upright position. They stabilize the pelvis. They stabilize the vertebral column. They stabilize the torso in this upright position to maintain good posture. So your peripheral limbs, such as your arms and your legs, we call them your appendicular system, which is your girdles and your appendixes, or your girdles and your limbs. And the middle is your what you call your axial system. So ultimately, your core muscles are there to stabilize your trunk, so you can move your limbs in the upright position. And this is like the base of the crane, and these are the arms of the crane. So why would you walk a crane laying down on the ground? It doesn't make any sense, because when you lay on the ground, you don't have to stabilize your pelvis, you don't have to stabilize your lower back, you don't have to stabilize your axial system, you don't have to stabilize your thoracics, because you're laying on the ground, and all you're doing is working muscles in an inappropriate position. So when you look at an exercise, look at the overall position. Is that position related to the goal that I want to achieve? I want quality of life in the upright position. Then why am I laying down? Or why am I hanging from the ceiling? Or why am I hanging onto some rope swinging around like a Tarzan? Or why am I laying on a ball? What part of my life am I laying in a big ball of air? And you see all these things come out, and they're fashionable tools that people use, and then they attach to them core or function very loosely without fully understanding what that actually means. So is the exercise functional? Is it specific to your outcome? You know, you might be an elite athlete, and you may say, well, we're going to lay on the ground and do this. Well, I don't recall doing my sport on the ground. I'm a fighter. I stand. When I fight, I stand up, I punch, and I kick in the upright position. So none of my training is actually done on the floor, because I don't fight on the floor. If I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Judo, then that might be a slightly different story. Then I could justify it. So the second one is obviously function. You also have wrapped in that safety. Does it look, so we like goal, what is your goal? Does it look safe? You know, does it look like it's going to injure you? And look at the main things that are going to injure you. Is there uncontrolled movement? Is there acceleration? Is there long lever swinging movements? Does that look safe? And I guess a good way to look at it is, would that movement be allowed in the workplace under the supervision of a workplace occupational health and safety officer? Because a lot of the exercises people do, they wouldn't pass even that tick in the workplace. So is the exercise safe? Does it look safe? And some exercise work the muscles, but unfortunately, they could compromise the joints. And the good philosophy in strength training is that you want to work the muscles while protecting the joints. You want to work the cardiovascular system while protecting the joints. You want to work the respiratory system while protecting the joints, because the joints are like your wheels of a car. Without them, no matter, the rest of the car can be perfect. You can have a perfect engine and a perfect paint job and perfect steering. You have a perfect everything. But if you don't have wheels, it's not going anywhere. So you've got to make sure you look after your wheels, because without them, you're not going anywhere. And your wheels are ultimately your joints. There you're moving. That's what creates motion. That's one of the main points of the skeletal system, is for motion. So you never compromise your joints, because while training muscles or training your cardiovascular system, because you can train them and compromise your joints, but then you're not going to be able to train your muscles anymore. You're not going to be able to train your cardiovascular system or respiratory system anymore anyway. And the thing with joints is once you're worn out, they're very hard to get back again, because they don't have a good blood supply like muscles. Therefore, they actually recover quite slowly. So what I always teach my students is put your X-ray goggles on. And when you're looking at an exercise, don't look at the muscles that it's working. Don't look at the movement. get the x-ray vision and look through the body and look at what is it doing to the skeletal system. What is it doing to my elbow joint, my shoulder joint, my lower back, my knee joint? What is it doing to the joints? So I always look at reverse. I always look at what it does to the joints, the ligaments, the cartilage. I look at the capsule, the menisci, then I go to the tendon, and the last thing I look at is the muscle, because the muscle heals quite well because it has great blood supply, but cartilage doesn't heal so well. And as you get more of vintage like me, when you get into your 40s and 50s and 60s, if you've been looking after yourself, you won't have any metabolic diseases, but the main things you always have to overcome is that osteoarthritis, that wear and tear. So one, make sure that the exercise or the program is linked in common sense and obvious ways to your goal. Two, is the exercise safe? Does it look safe? Because it's no use going driving the car, driving it brilliantly, building the engine if you're wearing out the tread and wearing out the wheels. That yes, ultimately the lifespan of your body will be shortened and you're going to be breaking down a lot more. And yes, you would have great high levels of performance in between, but in that short period of time. But you remember, you want your body to last, or your car to last you for the next, up to your 80s and 90s and 100s, so you can still be out running your great grandkids. So we're looking at obviously function. Then the next one is there actually a benefit to what I want to do? So does this actually provide me a physiological benefit? And that goes back to the benefit of the goal that you first set at the start. So you look at the exercise, and I use a common one. People go down on the ground to do crunches. They lay on the ground to do crunches. And there's two reasons why they do that. Number one, they want to burn fat off their tummy. Well, first of all, does that exercise, from a common sense point of view, burn fat off your tummy, doing a crunch? Well, if it did, first of all, if you don't have a choice where you put fat on, why do you think you have a choice when you take fat off? When you take fat off, for those who've lost fat, you tend to lose it all over. You lose it in the face, doesn't mean because you do face exercise. And if I had a fat chin and I did this, would that get fat off my chin? Well, that would be silly. If I was in the gym and I was doing this with no weight and just doing this, and you came up and say, "What are you doing?" I say, "Well, I'm getting fat off the back of my arm." Well, that would be really silly. That common sense is that it doesn't work that way. That way I could do one arm and not the other arm and have a thin arm and a fat arm. And then that would be weird too. So you don't have a choice where it comes on. So why do you think you have a choice when it comes off? If I have fat ankles, do I just do ankle crunches and I get fat off my ankle? I've got a fat chin, I'll get it off my chin. Well, it doesn't work that way, because as you know, fat comes off all over. So when you do an exercise, say crunches, and people get wrapped up into it, you go, well, does that deliver the result? Well, crunches does. It doesn't burn fat. Then they may say, well, it tones up the muscle. Well, first of all, muscle can't be untoned. And what makes this region look untoned? Probably doing the cover of fat that you got over it. So doing crunches, it doesn't burn fat, and it doesn't actually build muscle because there's no weight. What other exercise in the gym do you do to get toned or build muscle where you do like 40, 50, 60, 70 repetitions of? Well, none. If I want to, get big chest, I do a bench press with heavy weight and low repetitions. Then why would that be different when I do crunches? Do I do 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 repetitions thinking that's going to build muscle? Well, it doesn't. It just uses the muscle for endurance. You get that little burning sensation, which is the byproduct of using sugar or glycogen in that small muscle. That glycogen gets used without oxygen. So the byproduct is lactic acid. That means you're not burning fat, you're actually burning sugar. And that pushes up against the nerve endings. That gives you that sensation of pain, which we misinterpret as exploding fat cells or building muscle. But ultimately, all you're doing is you're wearing out that movement, and not to mention you're flexing the lower back like this on a repetitive nature. That could actually lead to lower back challenges, and that's another story. So it's not going to give you the benefit. You'd be better off hopping on a treadmill or doing something full body, using your full cardiovascular system, burning off lots of energy, because the reason why the fat's there all over is because you're storing too much energy. Therefore, you have to do high energy expenditure activities to get rid of the fat, and laying on the ground and doing this like a dead cockroach is certainly not going to burn off a lot of energy, let alone build muscle, let alone burn fat, let alone it's completely dysfunctional. What part of life do you lay on the ground and do that movement? You're working a group of muscles that function in the upright position. If you wanted strength, you'd be better off doing deadlifts and squats and lunges. At least they're going to train all these muscles in the upright position collectively and in cooperation with all the other muscles while doing a full body functional movement. And as you get stronger doing those big exercises, all your muscles, the big ones and the small ones, get stronger in a nice, balanced, coordinated, synchronized way, rather than trying to train each muscle separately and hope that they're all going to come together and work together, which is very hard because muscles are driven by the nervous system anyway, not individually. So ask yourself, is there a benefit? You may have exercise such as a leg extension, which is an isolated exercise for your quad, where you extend your leg up and down. And yes, is there a benefit there? Of course, there is a benefit. You actually build the quadricep in an isolated way. But the counter of that is that it's a dysfunctional movement, because what part of life do you sit on a chair, leaning back with your leg over the end, with a weight at the distal end of your foot, lifting the weight up and down? Well, it has no functional application. And plus, because that's an isolation movement, any isolation movement tends to place what we call shearing forces across the joint. The shearing force is where two bones join together and they go across that way. So a muscle pulls this way and it pulls the bone that way. And the other challenge with knee extensions or leg extensions, it also increases patellofemoral compression forces, where it pulls your patella or your kneecap back on the bone of your femur and grinds it across the top. And the number one injury in the knee joint is what we call patellofemoral syndrome, which is exactly that movement. So that exercise actually exaggerates and highlights that compression forces, and it's also not functional. So even though you're getting a benefit of working the quadriceps, but you're actually getting a contradictory side effect of increasing wear and tear in the knee joint, and it's not even functional. And the last question I ask is the most important question, is there a better exercise? Is there a better way to do it? So if I say, look at crunches, is there a better way to burn fat off my tummy? Absolutely. Well, maybe stop feeding your tummy. That might be a good start. Stop feeding the fat. How about you starve the fat and build the muscle? That might be a good start. And if you want to burn it off, you want to accelerate that burning off, then do things that increase the expenditure of your body when you're servicing it, such as cardiovascular. So pick high energy expenditure programs such as running or full body movements, where you're burning off the more of the engine you use, the more expenditure that you burn off. And also train at an intensity that changes the physiology of your engine. So you train at higher intensity, because that's really gets the mechanics working to retune your engine into a high performance machine, and that will increase what we call your metabolic rate. Now, low intensity activity doesn't increase metabolic rate. It increases for a short period of time while you're exercising, but it comes straight back down to flat lining straight after. High intensity activity, there's a higher what we call post increase in metabolic rate, but in that process, it will build more tissue, increase the revs of the engine, so your body actually increases its resting metabolic rate 24/7 when you're training and not when you're not training. So the whole idea is to increase those revs of the engine, and that's done with high quality training and high intensity relative to your ability. Understand that? I mean, not everyone's the same. And then do things such as strength training that's going to actually build more muscle tissue. That's going to raise your metabolic rate, because 70% of your total energy expenditure is expended doing nothing really, which is your resting metabolic rate while you're sleeping, while you're at the office, while you're walking around the yard, while you're walking around the streets. That's where most of your energy. But how much energy you expend in that time is determined by what you do in your training time. And your training time is not there to expend energy. Your training time there is to stimulate those mechanics to change your physiology. So don't even waste your time looking at the calorie counter while you're on the treadmill, or looking at, you're better off looking at your heart rate to see how high you can get your heart rate, or looking at how much weight you can lift in a safe rep range, because the higher the heart rate, the higher the weight, the higher the physiological change in your body is going to occur after and for the rest of your life. So think of training as a stimulus. When you go to training, it's putting the car in the mechanic shop, so the mechanics can turn this car and the engine and the wheels into a higher performing machine that's going to have high longevity, very, very high safety, and a level of performance that's going to match your life and your goals. So when you're designing exercise or program or picking an exercise, always ask, can I do this better? Can I do it in a more effective way, in a more time efficient way, in a safer way that's going to serve my life? Because we're going to be here, if you look after yourself, you'll be here for 80, 90, 100 years. But a lot of people are living longer, but they're dying earlier. And the reason why they still live longer, because what keeps them alive, even though they're dying earlier, is all the medications and pharmaceuticals. Well, be your own pharmacist and stimulate the body to release its own drugs, its own hormones, its own chemicals that are going to give you far more benefit than taking any form of pharmaceutical drug that's going to, reduce your blood pressure or coronary heart disease. You can change if you've got a pulse, you can change that. However, you have to take responsibility, take ownership of your own health, and ask yourself the right questions. There's 5 good questions. So I'll finish off. What is your goal? And is this exercise or program linked to the goal? Number 2, is it safe? Is it safe? Because if it's not safe, then it's not worth doing because you're not going to last. Number 3, is it functional or specific to what I want, not what everyone else wants for my life? Number 4, is there a benefit, a physiological benefit in building muscle, burning fat, or functionality? And number 5, the most important question is, how can I make this better? How can I make my body better, my health better, so it can serve my life, so I can have a rich, happy life, and most importantly, a healthy life, because health is the most important value, because when you lose your health, nothing else matters. So look after your body, look after your health, look after your mind, and you'll have this great vehicle will serve your life, and it'll be a happy life at that. Ta-ta!
Woo! May your Mondays be magical, may your Tuesdays be terrific, may your Wednesdays be very well, and your Thursdays be thankful, may your Fridays be a fun day, may your Saturdays be super, may your Sundays be sparkly, 'cause you choose them to be. Woo!
All right.
Ah.
So maybe anyone has any questions?
Happy, healthy, fit and strong.
You guys are awesome. We love you guys so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? You should be able to unmute yourself if you do. Come on, surely there's something there.
Come on, Shirley.
Shirley.
Don't call me Shirley.
Who was drinking a beer? That was awesome.
I like that.
That was great.
Scuba. Typical, mate. Ash Denham, surely you've always got questions.
Hey, gorgeous Ash. How are you, gorgeous Ash?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thank you so much, guys. That was awesome.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Not as much as we enjoyed being here.
So
what do I
good.
do a seminar?
We could.
Oh, we got Brad and Madeline are here too. All right, do we have any questions? Oh, here we go, Braddles. Are you on?
Braddles. Great name, Braddles. This is Brutus. Braddles, this is Brutus.
This is Brutus.
Hello. Hello. We turned our video off because we were in very compromising situations. That sounded way worse than what I meant.
Are you naked?
You're sitting there naked having a beer, aren't you?
Any questions at all, guys, for these two brilliant, incredible people? They have such incredible knowledge and wisdom, and now would be the time to ask. Anyone.
We know that you're in great hands, and this is my great opportunity to say how proud I am of Matt and Sheridan for what you're doing. Those of you who are unaware, if you haven't been to the studio since I was there last, we awarded them the very best health and fitness and exercise studio that we've ever been to. It's the first time that we've ever given that award to any studio, because you guys have you have access to the best in the world, the safest exercise, the most functional exercise, the most beautiful motivational people, and it's just such a pleasure to have them as in our life, and obviously to have been through our college. But these are really special people, so very very, very grateful that
thank you for sharing your family with us.
Yeah,
Thank you. You know, we're
Very grateful that Fit Bodies, Fit Minds is part of our lives, all of our lives. Hey, woohoo! Yes.
Thank you so much. No, we're very, very blessed. And we are so, so lucky to have people like you guys in our corner. And just in case you guys aren't aware, all of our trainers we only take on Max qualified trainers. And Max, obviously, beautiful branding plug here with KMan and Rowie with their Max shirts on, is the college that these guys head up. And it's the best of the best information. It's like going to Harvard versus going to TAFE. And we got to go to Harvard, which is it's so awesome.
Harvard Topper Girl.
Ah.
I'm not the best.
And barring travel restrictions, we'll be having a Max graduation at Fit Body, Fit Mind in November.
Yes, we will. We will. That's going to be a really cool day because we've got quite a few people that are on track to be able to graduate, which is exciting.
Yeah. At this moment, there's 17 of you. There's a big coming from Tassie as well, so it should be a really awesome graduation. I can't wait.
Amazing. And what about 7 of those are FBFMers?
Yes, absolutely.
FBFMs.
It's awesome. Well, if you guys have got no questions,
we know you're in good hands.
You're in good hands.
Yeah.
Well,
You're trained by the best.
We are so, so grateful for you guys sharing your time with us. So we know it's precious and we love you guys so much. And thank you all you guys for being here and listening to their wisdom and being such good students.
May your Mondays be magical. May your Tuesdays be terrific. Have an awesome day, everyone. Happy Monday, Friday for tomorrow.
We love you guys. Thank you all so much.
Bye.
Bye.